Welcome to Beyond Number 8, where we explore Agritech innovation in the 21st century. Kiwis are proud of their number 8 wire mentality, their ability to innovate with the most basic materials. But in the 21st century, science and technology have provided tools we could have never imagined, opening up new horizons for primary sector innovation. So where is it headed? What opportunities are beckoning? And how can we make sure New Zealand Agritech is ready and able to take advantage of them? Well, here we explore how we can innovate beyond number 8.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Number 8. I'm Peter Barraclough, the Chief Executive of Lincoln Agritech. And in this series, my colleagues and I will look at the challenges and opportunities facing New Zealand's agritech sector.
Kia ora and welcome to this episode of Beyond Number 8. I'm Joanne Hay and I am the Manager of the Sensing and Biotechnology Group at Lincoln Agritech, and this episode is focusing on women in agritech. So women have long been involved in New Zealand in horticulture and agriculture at all levels, and we know that the majority of science graduates in New Zealand are women, and yet women are underrepresented in the agritech sector. Numbers are improving. I know this from my own experience, I guess. I started at Agritech in the late 1990s, and I think of the 50 staff, 6 of us were women, but only 2 or 3 of us were working as scientists. But over the years, those numbers have certainly increased. We've got in senior management roles, team leadership roles, senior scientist roles, and on our board. But there's still a gender imbalance across the industry, and the challenge for us is to encourage women into agritech careers. So today we're going to talk about this, and I'm joined in the studio by Anton, who is the senior scientist and leader of the electromagnetics team at Lincoln Agritech. And zooming in, we have Juliet Ansell, who is head of core and resilience innovation at Zespri International. And we're going to have a chat about the challenges and the opportunities for women considering careers in agritech. So hello, Eva.
Hello.
And welcome, Juliet.
Hi, thank you.
So given that we work in a reasonably new and rapidly expanding space, I thought we could start by just discussing our career pathways and how we got to the roles that we currently have. For myself, I started at the University of Canterbury. I did an undergraduate degree there in plant biochemistry and then a PhD in molecular biology focusing on plant viruses. I worked overseas for a few years and then came back to Lincoln, first at Lincoln University and then Lincoln Agritech, and worked as a lab scientist for a number of years, developing microbial biotechnologies for monitoring pollutants in wastewater. And then from there, I just moved within the company through to different roles, project management, funding management, and now a group management role. So not a very direct or focused career progression, but very interesting nonetheless. So Eva, what about you? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so it seemed rather natural for me to go into that area. For example, my sister already studied physics. When it came to the choice of my studies, I kind of wanted to do both science and engineering. So I came across materials science, actually aspects of all of these things as physics, chemistry, engineering. So it seemed ideal for me. And during my studies, I got to go abroad a couple of times, but only for short visits. And so after I did my PhD, I thought I really want to try out and live abroad for longer, see what it's like. That's how I got to New Zealand for my postdoc. Yeah, I really liked the research. I liked being in New Zealand a lot. So I think that's what brought me really to the agritech sector, because New Zealand is really strong in the agricultural space. So yeah, that's how I came here.
So in your courses at university, would there have been a lot of women in those courses?
Yeah, it was 50-50 about the material science. It was pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And Juliet, you're from a different background again, I think. Can you tell us about how you kind of became part of this industry?
Yes, sure. So originally from the UK, and I studied, actually opposite to Eva, my whole family are artists and creatives, but I still had an interest in science. I always knew I wanted to be a scientist. I studied human health, so I actually studied parasites and got to travel to exotic tropical locations to study things like malaria And then after that, I switched to veterinary parasites, and that was to make the move down here to New Zealand and working on sheep. And then I think it was as I was working at plant and food research that I got interested in kiwi fruit and gut health, so the impact of different plants on how our digestive systems and immune systems interact. So then did a switch to Zespri, kind of worked my way through the health and nutrition portfolio there to a manager role. And then now, as head of core and resilience innovation, which covers a whole range of areas quite outside my expertise, actually.
I know that feeling. So we all come from quite different backgrounds, actually, which is interesting. So let's talk a little bit about some of the projects that you're working on at the moment. Eva, do you want to start?
Actually, my team is working on a really interesting project right now. So a few years back, we had a research project that was working on soil moisture sensors using microwave sensors. The project was all done, the results were published, and it was all in a drawer. By the time that we were actually approached by an Israeli startup company who got interested in our results. So the company is Autonomous Pivot, so they're making smart center irrigation pivots. So our technology was ultimately mounted on their smart irrigation systems. So now they can measure the soil moisture content in each part of the field and adjust the water, amount of water that they use very specifically for every little bit of the field. So that saves about 25% of water while producing the same yield. So it's a huge water saving, and it's currently being rolled out in the US and also in other countries already. So it's becoming, I think, more and more important now with climate change and all these environmental pressures to actually save water. And that will be really the coming next technology.
It's a really exciting. I know a little bit about that project, and it's really exciting to see your research move from a lab-based, technical work all the way through to a product that somebody wants and is now using and having such positive impacts.
It's always sad when your research really ends up in a drawer and doesn't come out anymore. But in this case, it's really put to use. So it's really, really nice to see.
It's a really exciting project. And I think you are also working on a medical image scanner, which is not really Agritech. Do you want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, it's a funny story. It actually started off with measuring the fat depth in sheep. So basically trying to figure out if the sheep are optimally fed so you can adjust and keep them as healthy as possible. So our microwave sensor was measuring how deep the fat layers were. But soon after, it became clear that the technology could also be used in actually imaging humans. So we're currently developing a system that works similar to ultrasound, so we can get images of the human body. But it's very cheap actually to produce with microwaves. It's easy to use. So it has a lot of advantages. It's not harmful, the microwave radiation to humans. And so how we got into the medical sector. But in turn, it can also be used again later in farm animals, for example, because once the humans can be imaged, it will be easy to transfer that, for example, to cows or sheep again.
So broad application of a central piece of technology.
Especially that it will be portable, so it will be easy to employ it on a farm, so we don't have to bring the animal into a facility, but we go out there and save the stress.
That's fantastic. Juliet, what are some of the projects you're working on at Zesbury?
So definitely in the area that Eva first mentioned around water and nitrates, and then being able to incorporate environmental sustainability to our growing. And actually we did a little bit of work with Lincoln Agritech on a bit of a paper exercise to start with, and looking at how we can measure nitrates in the whole catchment area, not just on orchard, but surrounding areas. That's something we want to definitely take to the next step and look at monitoring actually real life. Where's the water moving? Where are the nitrates going? That's really important for us in terms of making sure we're not polluting waterways, not having an impact that's detrimental. Another key area for us at the moment is the labour shortage. I mean, it's a global phenomenon, but particularly here in terms of on-orchard work and at harvest time. And we've been doing a really cool little bit of prototyping with the University of Waikato around not a completely automated harvest, but a human assist. So this actually is probably likely to bring more women into the sector, because instead of having to carry a very heavy bag as they pick, they sort of follow this automated bin along, and they can just pick directly into a soft landing. So yeah, that's been really cool to see that being tested and reiterated as we have the harvest right now.
That's very cool, isn't it? So it's very future focused, isn't it? It's broadening that that technology allows you to broaden the base of where you pull your labour from, so it makes it accessible to people who aren't so physically strong.
Yeah, I mean, or not necessarily just strong, or it could be they're not as physically able.
Yeah.
It's really about inclusion as well as solving our labour shortage problem.
And I think the first bit of science you were talking about, the nitrate work, I understand there's another episode of Beyond Number 8 coming up around that nitrate conundrum, so it's a pretty topical thing at the moment, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So, like many industries that have been male-dominated for a long time, it can be difficult to attract women into our sector, and we've all experienced unconscious bias at various times in various ways through our working life, I feel sure. So it can be quite daunting for women who don't see themselves represented in an industry. How do we overcome that challenge, and how can we make this agritech sector more attractive to women, do you think? Either of you got any thoughts on that?
In my experience, women go where other women are. So it's really important to make that start and hire some women in the first place, some more daring ones maybe.
Yeah.
And then once there are some, women naturally follow, because the culture that's created by especially women in leadership will be more attractive and make the women feel more comfortable in the end.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Juliet, have you got thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have not a bad gender balance at Zesbury, actually. And I think women are different from men. You know, I think they're quite sort of communicative, and they like to network and be supportive and help each other. So I think the culture at work is very important, and I guess that then starts to touch on around how flexible your employer can be. Women tend to be, they will sometimes have a workload at home in terms of childcare and that type of thing as well. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. You have to employ women. You have to see yourself in a workplace in order to be able to think that that's for you. But I think we have a role as well as women already in the workplace to be mentoring and supportive.
Yeah. And I guess that's what this podcast is about. It's about showing women working in the sector and that there are opportunities and there are exciting things that can be done and to encourage other women to engage with it. And you touched on that flexibility. I know from my own personal experience that Agritech has been very good to me around that flexibility of work, place and time when my kid, when I was younger and I was having children, and that made a real difference to me, and was probably one of the reasons I stayed on longer, because it did make it easier. And that's not just a women issue as well, as it applies to men as well. It makes a workplace more attractive, I think. And so do you think that sort of having that more balanced gender ratio at a workplace makes it a more attractive place to work? Does it change the culture of a place, do you think, Juliet?
I think so. I do think so. I just think that women bring a different feel to a meeting or a project.
Yeah.
I'm a biologist at heart, and I suppose I think men and women are different. They can be equal and different. So, traditionally females would bring more of a nurturing, caring, considerate. That's not to say that men can't be all of those things, but I think in the workplace it does tend to be a lot more about collaboration and bringing every viewpoint to the table.
Yeah, diversity bringing strength. Yeah. I think also we need to be a bit more vocal about the different skills and capabilities the agritech sector needs. I mean, it's characterised by a lot of startups, small to medium-sized startups as well. And so it's not just that traditional agricultural, horticultural skill base that the sector needs. They need engineering experience. They're looking at AI and product development. They need ecologists and environmental scientists, all the way through to people who understand commercialisation strategies and IP management and data management. So women from other disciplines have transferable skills that they can bring to the sector, I think. What are your thoughts, Eva?
Yeah, exactly like this. I feel we have to recruit a bit more broadly, be less narrow-minded. Maybe already starting writing those job ads. Sometimes they're really narrowly focused, and then women read it and see, oh, I don't check all these boxes here, so I can't apply. Whereas they really have all the skills that they need to do the job. It's just that they might have come from a slightly different sector than the company was looking for.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that will be really good, I think, for actually industry, because if you have people from different backgrounds together, they usually work together more creatively, bring in new ideas. So I think everyone would profit from that a bit.
Yeah, so it's a confidence thing, you think, with women? We look at an ad and we go, oh, we can't actually do all of it, so we might not apply, whereas perhaps a man might look at it and go, oh, yeah, I can do most of that or some of that, I'll give it a go.
I think it might happen. The attitude might be different.
Yeah.
And there's a study that's shown that, actually, that, that's exactly what happens with women. They need to feel they can do about 90% of a role before they'll even think about applying.
Yeah.
So, confidence, encouragement, and I do think there's all the things that we can help be active in and in encouraging other women.
Yeah, for sure. And did you have any other thoughts, Juliet, about the skills that women can bring?
I think I've mentioned some of them already. It really is that I think communication skills tend to be really strong.
Yeah.
But just not thinking because you didn't study agriculture, that doesn't mean that you're precluded from working in Agritech. I started off in human health and medical kind of research. So, and I've got many people in my team who didn't study horticulture even. So, it is those transferable skills. Don't limit yourself would be what I'd say. Just, think about what you're interested in and what drives you.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I think earlier when we talked offline a little while, you talked about women being often the purchaser or the end user of products, and so their viewpoints can be quite valuable in that respect.
Yeah, and I think we see that a little bit in the kiwi fruit industry. So often they're family orchards, and perhaps the man is the face of that, the grower face. But women are very involved. We have a women in kiwi fruit organisation where they get together. But I think they make a lot of decisions around, or help support making decisions around what's being bought and how orchards are going to be run. So they have an important voice in agriculture.
Yeah, that's a perspective that we shouldn't ignore. Right, well, thank you, Eva and Juliet, for a really interesting conversation. I think we've touched on quite a few issues today, and it is exciting being part of a sector that's growing as fast as it is, and that has real potential to have very positive impacts on the world that we live in, and with climate change very much forward in our thinking and agricultural sustainability. This is the sector that we are working in and contributing to, and so I think it's it's a very real and positive career step for people to be considering. I think we have perhaps a responsibility as women in the sector to encourage others to adopt their skills to the Agritech sector, and to be more visible ourselves to encourage that. So look, thank you for chatting with me today. Lots of things to think about. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you.
And thank you, Juliet.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Number 8, presented by Lincoln Agritech. To find out more about Lincoln Agritech, visit lincolnagritech.co.nz. Subscribe to our newsletter in the podcast description below, or find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, and keep up to date with our latest science and innovation. Until the next episode, when we'll continue exploring Beyond Number 8.